Freedom is in peace. If you look at all these subtle emotions that go at the level of peace, freedom is up there. If it's total freedom and true freedom, there's no attachment or aversion anymore. If there's no attachment and aversion, you're basically enlightened. You know, you're living from this state where somebody could yell at you and it goes right through you. You could lose your money and you're just like, I'll just make more. You know, you trust completely. The Buddha said the source of all suffering is attachment. Lester Levinson said attachments and aversions. And really aversions are just reverse attachments, so that they're all attachments. So total freedom is really the top of the scale.
Good to go? All right. You ready?
I think so.
Are you ready? All right, 1:37.
Can all hear me? Sound test? Sound all good?
Mic, check.
It's one thing I hate when the mics are off.
All right, I'm going to start this by going way off the deep end. We're going to go deep. I want to rewind to our dinner last night.
Okay.
And you had talked about this concept of how Jesus completely destroyed the ego. And
Yes.
how we crucify ourselves internally every day. Let's explore that concept again, because it was very interesting, and I pondered on it a lot last night.
Yeah, you're going deep fast. You didn't even warm me up. Do you want me just to explain it overall?
Yeah. Let's start with the principles, and then we could go deeper.
Well, I love the Bible, and I love the Gospels, and I love the story of Jesus particularly, and but I don't subscribe to the same stories fundamentalist Christian views kind of have come up with. I've taken a lot of deep look at symbolically what they mean, and the symbology is huge. It's enormous. In my opinion, when I look at Jesus on the cross, it's about transmutation. It's about the law of transmutation. It's about enlightenment. It's about waking up. If you look at Jesus, he has this opportunity. I don't think I said this last night, but he has this opportunity to not go be crucified. He knows what's going to happen. He knows it's coming, and he decides to face it head on. He doesn't run from it. He walks right into the situation, and then when he gets there, he's judged. Then he's attacked, and then they decide to crucify him, and you know they're yelling at him, spitting on him, cussing at him. There's people in the crowd crying over him. It's all these emotions, and what does he do in the midst of all that? He keeps his heart open. The one thing he says is, "God, forgive them; they know not what they do." It's about how, in the midst of the worst possible conditions, can you love, which is about forgiveness. How can you forgive? How can you love? How can you be totally present? And keep walking forward. Now he's walking forward with the cross on his back, and he in that whole process, I think is very important of that walk, because it's like walking into the storm, and then he gets put up on the cross, and for everybody to see, and he has that last moment of doubt, you know. God, why hast thou forsaken me? He's also cut off energetically. I look at everything from energetics and embodiment. So energetically, his hands are cut off, his feet are cut off from the ground, his arms are cut off from the expression energy this way, because we receive energy from the ground, energy from above. He's got the crown of thorns on, and there's that last moment of death, and then that last moment before he dies, and then he's buried. And there's a little bit of symbology. I need to look a little deeper into this, into where he's buried, having to do with the skull and the this part of the skull being opened up, and then him, and as the rock got moved, and him escaping, because he was crucified on the what was the name of that? What it represented the skull. Actually, the mound he was crucified on has a name that represents the skull. So that part I need to go back over, but let's continue on. And then he is reborn 3 days later, and he's at the right arm of God, completely gone. Now his body's completely gone. So when we think about this is the process of enlightenment, or waking up to the point where you experience full transmutation to your spiritual energetic self, your energetic body. And in a lot of traditions, they talk about the other side, and it's like, and I've experienced this, and we can talk about this later if you want, where it's when I saw what I believed to be the other side, it was energetic. Everything was energy and life. The physical disappears, and everything, the walls of the buildings I saw were filled with energy and love and light. So there's a full transmutation, a full complete death of the ego and a rebirth. And so now let's take that whole story and look at it. If every one of those voices represents the ego, represents people attacking him, represents judgments, represents how you see the world, and they're being yelled at, screamed at, and he's letting all of it go and facing it, walking into all of it, all the thoughts, all the negative self-talk, all the stories, and just saying, yeah, bring it all on. I'm going to love it all. And then transmuting it all in like what would take people many lifetimes or a lifetime. He does it all in like, 3 to 6 hours, somewhere in that range. And then when the last one dies, he completely dissolves like caterpillar into a cocoon into a butterfly, and he's reborn, and to his true self on the other side of the ego. And it's a demonstration of total forgiveness and the process that happens when you let go of all attachments and aversions.
And how do we look at it as a symbol for life today in practicality, right? You had mentioned yesterday that we pretty much crucify ourselves internally every day, right? We're spitting on ourselves, throwing shit at ourselves all the time. It seems like we have an opportunity to transmutate.
Well, what he experienced externally, we're doing to ourselves.
Sure.
Internally. We're internally crucifying ourselves all day long. If you're a judgmental person, you're judging yourself as harshly as you judge others. Guaranteed. There's no way you're not. If you are out there analyzing right, wrong, good, and bad in an attachment sort of way, I'm not saying that this isn't a choice I'd rather make. This is a better choice for me. But there's a difference between saying that's wrong, this is right all the time. If you're doing that, you're a judgmental person. And if you listen to your internal dialogue and your thoughts, and most people, if they listen to their internal dialogue and thoughts for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and really listen to their secret thoughts, it's not good. We're running around being brutal to everybody else and ourselves and the world. And it's harsh. And when that dies, they know in meditation, when the voice in the head dies, the stillness that ensues, the love, and the heart opens, and you're sitting there in bliss. It's amazing. Have you ever heard of coma state of hypnosis or Easdale state?
No.
It's a deep state in hypnosis, and this is like deep meditation. And Easdale originally figured it out. I was a doctor that would do open stomach surgery, I believe, in the 1840s, and he would take it. And they didn't even call it hypnosis back then. He would spend 4 hours getting people into trance, and then he would do open stomach surgery, and there'd be no pain. And so this guy, years later in the 60s, Ellman said, what is this state? I want to see if I can recreate it, because he kept reading about it, and he was a hypnotist. So he recreated the state. He called it the coma state. And he get these people in this state, and they wouldn't want to come out. He said, I'd try to bring them back up. They wouldn't come out. They'd sit there. He says, I would try all kinds of stuff to get them to come out. Couldn't get them to come out. And suggestion was useless. And what I finally figured out, after they finally did come out, and he said, I finally found one trick to get them out. I told him that if you don't come out of this state right now, I'm never going to put you back in it ever again. And he said it was either that or they had to go to the bathroom so bad it would bring them out. So and he said, why didn't you come out? Like, one of the tricks he did is he put a match in their hand because they wouldn't move themselves. The more they moved, the more it disrupted the state, because they're in pure love and bliss, is what he found out. And he said, I'd burn the match, and they would open their fingers just enough to drop it and then stay there. And his question to them was, why wouldn't you come out? And they said, because it was so beautiful. I wanted to stay there as long as possible. I was ignoring you. I could hear you talking. I just didn't care. And I think that's at our core. When the ego turns off, we're in this state of pure love and bliss. Jesus talked about it a lot. And, that God is love, and he represents the heart. And that's why I think the Gospels and the teachings of Jesus, especially if you go all the way back and retranslate them from Aramaic, which is the original language of Jesus, or Gospel, or Greek if you want, I think you really get that sense of what it is to forgive and love and let go and realize this, all attachments, all aversions are suffering.
Sure.
And
you mentioned that this kind of plays into the levels of consciousness and how Jesus kind of stayed vibrating at what was it, like 1,000, right?
Yeah, according to Dr. Hawkins. Yeah.
Before we go into levels of consciousness, can you define consciousness in practical terms? You know, we have a lot of young entrepreneurs. Myself, I think of me as like a third grader when it comes to this stuff. Let's dial it down from consciousness to the simplest level, and then we'll go expand on it.
Well, if we throw out the numbers and we go, Lester Levinson was the originator of the Sedona method. Hawkins was one of his students. They don't talk about it much. They had a falling out. Nobody knows what the real falling out was. So Hawkins didn't talk about it much. But Hawkins took his scale and expanded it, and that became the logarithmic scale of consciousness, 0 to 1,000. 0 being the bottom of the scale, complete shame and grief. Shame, I believe, basically shame, abandonment, stuff like that, at the lowest level of the scale, that self-hate energy. At the top of the scale, at level 1,000 is total peace and enlightenment. And the top of the scale at 1,000 would be like Buddha, Jesus, people like that. And so when we look at that scale, where I think it's really important is level 200. At 200, so it goes apathy. At the lower levels of consciousness, it's at the emotional equivalent is like apathy, grief, fear. That's the low inward emotions. Like I'm attacking myself. I'm wrong. I got to get from the world. Can I get from you? At the next level, lust, anger, pride, or wanting, anger, pride. I'm chasing. I'm efforting. I got to go get. I got to hustle. I got to, I'll go work 100 hours a week and change my life. But then someday I can relax. And there's that pushing energy. All that pushing. And then at the next level above pride, that's when we drop the part of us that's judging the world, and we go into courage. Pride is win-lose. You go to one below, anger, that's lashing out. In my mind, that's lose-lose. And then you go up to, I'm going to win. There's going to be a winner and a loser. Then you go up to win-win, which is courage. Courage is the first emotion that has the word loving in it. In my opinion, when you cross level 200 on Hawkins scale, when you cross the level of courage, you actually begin to open your heart and you begin to live through the world through an open heart. Courage is the first level of strong vulnerability, not needy vulnerability, strong vulnerability. This ability to say, I'm going to be authentically vulnerable and real with you. And we're going to create win-wins together. And that's the energy where life begins, real life begins. When an entrepreneur is below the level of courage, and courage, got to remember that vulnerability and courage means to speak one's truth with an open heart. The original definition of courage was not about physical heroics. It was about being authentic and being real. And there's nothing more powerful than authenticity. And what drives true authenticity is love. And not that fake love, not the BS love where you go out and pretend to be loving. No, it's authentic love is about honesty. It's about being real. It's about saying what the moment needs said. It's not just telling people what they want to hear. And that's so at that level of 200, your heart begins to open and you begin to get really vulnerable and real in a strong way with people. So now that doesn't mean all your fear is gone or your anger is gone. But now when you have fear from courage, you're looking at your fear from courage. You're saying, I'm going to create a win-win out of this fear and grow. I'm going to step into this fear and grow. If you're down identified with fear, that you don't grow from there. You step into the fear and you're just pushing through with force at best.
Sure. Where does most of the world operate from level-wise?
Hawkins said around, and he did this through his methods of testing. So I'm just going to go with what he said. He said around, I don't remember what year it was, but it wasn't too long ago that we crossed the 50% mark, that 51% of the world is operating from courage. Before that, it had always been below 50%.
Interesting.
And when you, as an individual, or you out there, begin to build your business and from the level of courage, that open-hearted vulnerability or higher, and it goes courage, acceptance, love, peace, or there's other emotions in there if you want to look at it. When people start to want to help you, they start to want to show up. You come out of the mental race, you come out of the efforting. People want to give to you. People want to support your business. I've seen it time and time again with entrepreneurs I work with. When I get them above the level of courage, they couldn't sell shit, to be honest. I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast.
You can certainly curse.
And suddenly clients start showing up out of the woodwork, and they don't understand. I did all this marketing. I did all these sales campaigns. Nobody bought. They wouldn't buy the cheapest program from me. And then like this one client recently goes, and then not even from any campaign I did at all. A guy showed up and wanted to pay me $2,500 to do something, and he was shocked. And I said, it's because he had crossed that point. And I was like, that's what happens when you cross that point. People start to show up, opportunities show up, and you become an attractor field for more and more success. The higher you go, the more success. Doesn't mean there's no effort at that, but the effort is coming from this place of that courage now. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And it reminds me of something that you talk about a lot, where you can build from either flow state or you can build from force.
Yes.
I've done both. Building from flow is significantly better objectively, in my opinion. Well, I guess that doesn't even make sense objectively in opinion.
Yeah.
I believe objectively that building from flow allows you to build from a higher state of courage, which then the business starts to take on its own level of energy beyond yourself.
Yes. Help
me understand that deeper and how that shows up in your work, because I want people to, like, we dropped in real deep to start, but I also want people to understand kind of the work you do and what role you play. Well,
I think there's flow and flow state. Okay, I can jump up and down, yell and scream, and get myself into flow state. Like where there's a little bit of a race in my mind, and I'm going, and I can get that experience of flow from that. But that's very flow state. But that's a little different than flow, in my opinion.
Sure.
There is natural flow that flows through your body. When you can learn to relax into flow versus force yourself into flow, it's so much more powerful. And so building from flow, you can't get into flow until you're encouraged or above. Flow is about the flow of energy through your body and you're giving to the world. So facilitating that process of feeling energy, like if I am energetically, if I look at you and I'm trying to get from you and I start like pleading with you with my eyes, do you feel that difference? There's a sense of, hey, I got this thing over here I want to show you. And people feel that. They feel a tug on them. If I'm forcing, I'm like, hey, I got this thing. What's your name? Where are you from? And there's a sense of push on you, right? You could feel the difference between the pull and the push, right? Yep. If I look at you and I stop pushing and pulling and I just receive you and welcome you into my heart, now I'm being giving to you. And giving always gets a giving response from the world overall. Maybe not every individual wants to be giving back, but if you just stay in this state and you learn to stay there 60, 70, 80% of the time where you're really feeling people, letting them in, then they want to, then what happens is stuff starts coming into your life because you're literally letting it in. You're literally letting that energy into your heart and you're feeling it. And people feel safe. People feel like, wow, I like this person. I really want to help this person. I really want to. And could you feel it the third one when I started to let you in more?
Yep.
And that difference is huge. When I see a client cross the level of courage and start operating from this state of receiving and giving, where there's no force on either, it's whatever direction wants to flow, I can usually estimate that when they first get there, it's going to be 2, maybe up to 6 weeks, depending on how much they're staying in. They're going to start seeing abundance come into their life. They're going to start seeing things turn around, and it's awesome to watch happen. Now, the problem with that is if they've been living in the race and the force and the push for years, and they get that for the first time, and it finally happens and this abundance starts coming in, what do you think they do?
They probably stop doing it.
Yes, they go back to their old behaviors.
Because it's almost like the worst place you can be is successful and not knowing why. There's no attribution to it. Like the code is almost still corrupted, as our good friend Ani would say.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Ani's absolutely right. And they react. Here's another. When you start getting abundance and you're not used to it, what comes with abundance? When I start receiving money, I start receiving eyeballs on me. I start receiving offers for more business and all that. What comes with that?
Level of responsibility.
Responsibility. The moment all of that, great, I got all the money. Now I have to show up. And I'm going to be witnessed by all these people in the world. And they get to judge me back for all my work now that I've finally got it. Oh, shit. Right back into the race. And now I'm going to go back to my old behavior and try to do what I used to do to manage all this abundance. And then it all starts to go away.
Yeah. Let's talk about that more, about the corrupted code and almost the lies we tell ourselves to stay safe. Because from what I've deduced in the work that you do, you're going deep into the actual root, no longer the symptom of like how to, when you obtain abundance, how does this become sustainable? Help us. Well, first, let's level set on what you actually do for work and the work that you're doing for men, women, whatever that looks like. Yeah. And then we'll go deeper into like the lies
I do a lot of embodiment work.
Yeah. What does that mean?
And I do what I call an energetic embodiment. So embodiment is about learning to think with and feel with the body versus the brain. So is the way I look at it. There's a sense of a lot of people are trying to run their life from this little analytical world up here. I'm like thinking, calculating. And they've lost the connection to this vehicle. And when you begin to think with the whole entire body, all these resources show up. So now if I take my consciousness and expand, and instead of just thinking and analyzing between me and you, and I expand the consciousness into my heart, for example, my heart gets emotional reads. As I let you into my heart, I can emotionally pick up on what you're feeling. Vice versa, if I give you my heart, you can trust me more. Women know this instinctively when they're dating. Is this guy letting me in or not? They say it all the time. You're not letting me in. You're not present. And is he letting me into my heart, into his heart? Is he letting me see who he is? If he isn't, I don't trust him, right? And then if you go down to the gut, in science, we call it gut as the second brain. The gut is your instinctual brain. So now I feel something here. I drop it into the gut, and I get instinctual hits about it. Do this, say this, ask this. I don't know why, but as you learn to get in touch with the gut, you begin to trust it. If the gut's out of balance, you have, if the heart's out of balance, you can be sad, you can be walled off, you can be cold, you can be lonely. There's no joy in your life. If the gut is shut down, there's typically stuff stored in there that you don't want to accept, i.e., you don't want to digest. I don't want to digest this sad emotion. I don't want to digest, I can't accept with this reality that happened to me. I'm not going to digest it. So the physical reality matches the energetic reality. The energetic reality comes first, then the physical reality. But when the gut turns back on and I start, and let's say you yell at me and I feel it and digest it and I'm present with it because you're mad. And then what happens is after I digest it, I can process it and then you feel seen and heard. It's almost a metaphor, but it's not a metaphor. It's kind of literally happening. So I welcome you. I feel you. I accept you. That's what the stomach's doing. I digest your ideas. Maybe you give me a new idea for a business. And I'm like, let me really take that into my gut brain and digest it and then see what comes out in return. Then the hips are all about creativity. They create a baby. They can create reality. So you start to feel stuff in the hips and that's your turn on for life. That if you're tuned in here in your core, the center pillar, as my friend used to say, then I can wake up and get more turned on for life. I'm going to, as David Data would say, I'm going to go fuck the world open. I'm not, Yep. And because now I'm living life through my body, which is what the body's for. It's the vehicle for life. We can't do a damn thing in this physical world without a body. Yet we spend all day in our heads. It's like driving a car down you buy a nice car. You buy your Maserati or a Ferrari, or you said you wanted a Ferrari earlier. And you sit on the roof of the car and you reach in and drive through because you don't want to be in it. Because you don't like the feeling of being in the vehicle itself. So I'm going to go stay like the head is like being on the roof of the car and reaching in and trying to steer through the window. It doesn't work. This is the vehicle for life. This is how we feel life. This is how we connect to people. This is how we process. Then there's grounding into the earth. Like we feel through our body into the earth. What comes from the earth? Everything the physical body needs to stay safe. All the elements we need to stay safe. Food, water, shelter. Every ancestor you've ever had is buried in that earth. Every thing that's ever happened, been said on this planet is buried in that earth. That earth is the subconscious mind of humanity. And then everything you want to create comes from that earth physically. Like if I want this building, it all had to come from that earth. So your connection to that ground beneath you is equal to your confidence, your safety, your ability to feel safe in the world. And when people have racy minds, they're disconnected from this vehicle that grounds it all out, right? And so hopefully this isn't getting too far out there.
No. So I love this shit, but I also need to make sure that appealing to, like I told you, the only filter is we appeal to my 22-year-old self. So we're getting a little bit too deep down the rabbit hole too early. Why does this matter when you're young in entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Why does this matter? Because let's say we go back to when I was a young entrepreneur, I was completely in my head. Matter of fact, I was so in my head when I kept trying to learn how to make a business take off, and everything I did failed. Not only did it fail, everything I did cost me money, and I was getting terrified. Like, if I start something else, I'm really going to end up in the streets, right? Yep. But I learned a lot. I started studying personal growth like crazy, and none of it worked on me. And I was like, why does none of this work on me? And I would share it with people, and they would be like, this is amazing, and their lives would take off. And I'm like, okay, this stuff, it's not that this stuff doesn't work. There's something about me, is what I realized. Then I had this friend, and I watched this friend go from, he quit his sales job. He was fairly successful in sales, but he's making about $15,000 a month as a salesman. He quit the sales job, started his own business, and in 91 or 92 days, he was over $100K a month in his business. And I was like, fuck, look at that. You know, that's like, he's over $1 million a year, 1.2 million a year in 91, 92 days. I'm like, how did you do that? And he said, well, you got to meet this guy. So he introduced me, and he called him like Yoda. And he introduced me to what became my teacher, Carl. Carl looked at me, and he did some movement work with me, embodiment work with me. And he said, you are so in your head, you're above your head. You are so disconnected from your body. You cannot feel a thing. And I said, well, why doesn't any of the personal growth work on me? The hypnosis, the mindset, what works on everybody else? You know, all these books I've read. And he said, because you can't feel. He says that all these concepts that you're learning, it's not that they don't have an effect, couldn't have an effect on you, but if you're this much locked in your head, they're not emotionally affecting you. They're not changing your subconscious mind because you've locked yourself out of it. You can't feel anything.
Why do you think that was for you?
Trauma.
Trauma,
yeah. I had lots of trauma. Lots of abuse, bipolar mothers, most likely borderline and narcissistic. She was definitely narcissistic. Sociopathic stepfather that was a career criminal. There's just so much abuse that I completely numbed out and shut off. And I didn't want to feel anything. But then my life was not changing. I was stuck. Everything I did, I was stuck. And I really noticed it in dating at the time, because when you're hyper, and for guys out there that are learning, you'll see this in sales too. When you're completely in your head and you go to sell or you go on a date and there's no emotion, there's no feeling, it's all data and logic, nothing turns people away faster. You could have the best product in the world. You could have all these great ideas. You could say all the right things. You could say just like the best salesman in the world. But that's not why people buy, because you said things and did things perfectly. They buy or invest in you because they can feel you. They feel, there's like something about this guy. Like when Martin Luther King gets on stage and speaks and he polarizes a nation, it's not because he said a great speech per se, it's because of all that feeling and emotion that was conveyed in his speech. That was the bigger part of it. Then the words take on power. When, if you look at somebody who's attractive like James Dean, he would drop into his hips and feel all this turn on and look at the camera and with women with this turn on, unapologetic turn on. You can see it in different people. Martin Luther King was all about the heart, and the heart is where all the love, the joy and the love for life or compassion comes from. That's what we polarize to. Now we look out there in the world at people that, like Richard Branson, hyper vulnerable. Like you look at this guy speak and there's just all this raw emotion coming off of him. And when he turns red, he turns bright, and he owns it. He loves it. And each one of these really successful people, you can find high levels of embodiment in some form or another. When I look at, it doesn't matter if it's Trump, it doesn't matter if it's who's that other guy that's the opposite of Trump, he's more left-wing, Mark Cuban. Doesn't matter. Like each one of them has a certain high level of embodiment and connection that when I was young, I didn't have. And I see so many young people don't have it. They're numb, they're pushing, they're forcing, they're fighting. They're below this level of courage, trying to take a square peg and jam it into a round hole, or trying to just force reality. And then they're watching these people like, I think Goggins has a certain thing, Dan Pena has a certain thing about him, but they're telling you just got to push. And honestly, that burns a lot of people out. A lot of people can't do it. I couldn't do it. I got sick. I ended up having to take a year off just to heal my body after trying to do that stuff. I had blood in my throat, my body was falling apart. And I realized there had to be a better way, and that's what I went to search for. It's like, how do I get in balance, in vibrational balance with life? How do I respond to, like, when we're looking at each other, and it's all about tension and vulnerability, tension being the masculine, vulnerability being the feminine. When I take you in, I'm creating a conduit, a connection with you, a bubble. And then I'm feeling your emotions, and then I'm responding to those emotions, not like sappy responding. I'm just responding, period. Like, I can feel the tension. I can feel the flow of sadness or grief or happiness or curiosity. I can respond to that. And that's what makes people feel seen. So when you start to do that, it gets a lot easier versus just force.
How do we reverse the numbness? Because I was force for a very long time. And I had to take some like radical changes of just going therapy, et cetera. But like, how does, at the smallest level, what's the step one someone can take right now after they watch this that they can go
burn
reverse?
out?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's what always happened to.
Yeah.
So you can only take it so long.
The pain was so great that I had to change.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah. And that's very common with young entrepreneurs. I see it all the time. They come into my programs and they've been pushing and forcing and burning out. Typically, they don't know how to feel from their heart very well. They're typically very mentally oriented. I'm not always. Some people, they feel like certain things to me when I look at them, like a brick or steel, and they're very mentally oriented. And then they tend to lean their energy like this, like there's a sense of, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this happen. So they get up and they burn willpower all day. And by burning willpower, they pump cortisol like crazy. And that cortisol is then associating pain with what they're doing. The more they associate, we call it the pain pleasure principle. The more they associate pain with their activity, the less each day they're going to want to do that activity. Eventually the body's going to start shutting down more and more and more because the pain associated with the activity is building, and they have to use more willpower. And the opposite is true too. If I can get my heart open, which starts with opening the heart, in balance with the grounding, because if you just open your heart with no grounding, you can feel tons of anxiety. But it starts with opening the heart. And as you learn to open that heart and then learn to calibrate the tension vulnerability response properly, you start to get oxytocin responses. The more you get like oxytocin responses, these positive chemical responses with tension, the more you fall in love with it, the more it teaches you, the more you learn. So Kelly McGonigal, she did a 14-minute TED Talk on this principle, how to make stress your friend. I suggest everybody watch it. It is such a valuable TED Talk. She basically said that there was a study done where they studied 30,000 people over 8 years, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. And they asked them all if they had low stress, medium stress, or high stress. And the ones that had, and then at the end of the 8 years, they wanted to see, I forgot, left one thing out: low stress, medium stress, or high stress. And do you think stress is good for you or bad for you? Those were the two basic questions. And at the end of the 8 years, they wanted to see where they were at. And so what they saw was that the people that had high stress and thought stress was bad for them had the most illnesses, deaths, problems, challenges. But the ones that had high stress and thought stress was good for them were the most successful, happiest. Their lives were blowing up. So it wasn't the stress. It was their relationship to the stress.
Sure.
They also noticed that they started to look at their bodies. The ones with high stress that thought stress was good for them had oxytocin pumping. The ones that had high stress and thought stress was bad with them had cortisol pumping. The ones with high stress thought stress was good with them. Their hearts were pumping more blood into the heart. The ones that had high stress but thought stress was bad for them, their hearts were closing off and there was less blood pumping in. And all of these chemical reactions were happening in the body that were so different. And so a lot of that has to do with, I do a lot of emotional work with teaching people to open their heart and keep it open. The problem with opening your heart in the beginning is we tend to have to go through a lot of, like I did, fear, anxiety, doubt, all the stuff, the reasons you're closing your heart in the first place. I'm going to shut this thing and I'm not going to open it again. And I'm going to hide from the world, and then so when we first start to open it, so I go between grounding, which makes you feel safe, and then opening the heart a little bit more. Grounding, get to the safety, open the heart until we can get that heart open and you can start to experience the sweetness of life again, the flow of energy through your body, the joy that comes from, and I start teaching people how to enjoy it. The first thing I do is before teaching them how to go get success to make them happy. If I get $1 million, I'll be happy. Let's teach to be happy. Let's start with learning to be happy with your life just the way it is. Then the $1 million will be easy to get.
Sure.
Real easy to get. If you really solidify this foundation. But no, I want the million first. I want the million. And that's the battle, right? But if they do it, it's going to be so much faster to do it the way I'm saying. It's going to change everything.
And when you say faster, it's not like it doesn't happen instantly, but it's also like you go through so much less cycles of pain. This is what I've observed, where it's like, yes, the harder route in the short term is to go through the exact route that you're saying.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you could just outwork the problem in the beginning. But now I'm like, I'll sit in front of some work and like I've associated with so much pain that there's so much cortisol that's been pumped that I literally can't look at the work anymore.
Yes.
I can't get myself to do it.
You can almost get a revulsion. That's the upset. Yeah. You get it like this, pushing back. Yeah. And that's the problem. So by teaching you to enjoy life again, then we can start to surmount that problem. I used to have the same problem with money, for example. And I would go to look at the accounting and when my first business, and I would be so stressed over money because I'm on programs with money. My heart would close and I'd get into pain, anxiety. I would want to cry. If I kept looking at it, I'd cry. So I'd have to look at it a little, put it away, look at it a little, put it away. And I was like, what is going on with my body? I didn't understand at the time. But as I began to understand it more and more, and I started to solidify, and I literally practiced enjoying life. Well, how many people go out to literally, I made it my morning ritual at one point to find the sweetness of life before I started my workday, to get up every day and get my body to open the heart again. I call them heart walks and vulnerability walks. Learn to feel get this oxytocin response going before I started my day. And then I would go to do the work, and then I'd still have to work to train my body not to close its heart down on stuff that I had associated so much pain with. And I train it to stay open until eventually the very thing I associated pain with, by practicing being happy first before I worked on it and keeping that state, I started to associate pleasure with. Things that used to cause me pain started to become fun. They literally transmuted to a whole new experience. And I was like, this is changeable. But I have to have this baseline, which is the courage, crossing the heart opening is the courage, real courage, like that vulnerable courage. And then when I can own that baseline and then go look at things from that, and I understood how to get into it, I understood what it felt like to come out, and then I could start to desensitize myself to stuff I created so much pain and anxiety around. And it took time, but I did it.
Sure.
And then the way I related to numbers and money all changed. Then here's the magical part. First, it changes and things start to get better and better. But then at a certain point, as you start to relax into it and it starts to normalize and you start to this is the way life is, then success starts to chase you. Yeah. Clients show up. You're like, there's another client. There's more money. It's the world, as Lester Levinson used to say, at the bottom of the emotional scale, the world seems very stingy. At the top of the emotional scale, the world is super giving and super loving, and the whole way you perceive the world changes. In the middle, it's a fight. I'm going to fight with the world and wrestle with the world. So,
this is the stuff that I wish I really learned and embodied and understood when I was younger. Because I feel like when you're first getting into entrepreneurship, like your first thought is like, I'm just going to grind because I have literally all the time in the world and no money. I'm broke. So what the hell does this all matter? But what I shortly realized is like the second you continue to work and work and work, you create so much momentum on things that you didn't even know you wanted, that weren't actually in alignment with what you actually wanted in your life. And then burnout comes. And so for me, it came up where even like less than a year ago, I'm sitting here, I'm like, why did I obtain every single thing I've ever wanted in my life quicker than I ever wanted to, in more abundance than I ever thought I could, and I'm fucking miserable?
Yeah.
I wish I started to do this work a lot earlier, because
you only amplify the misery. The more you succeed. If you're unhappy now at, let's say, with a little business, when that business becomes a multi-million-dollar business, you'll become that much more unhappy.
Yep.
That much more miserable.
How do we start to implement this work while still managing the balance of, like, in the beginning, you'd likely still have to put in a lot of hours, right? Like you do have to, there's some level of force that has to be applied to get the inertia rolling.
Yeah.
How do we manage that?
In the beginning, if you can master what the level of courage feels like and learn to get the win-win and the heart open, then when you, and that doesn't mean you're out of force. That doesn't mean you're out of anger and all that. It just means now I'm looking at my fear. Let's use fear. People have a lot of fear when they go out I'm going to go do sales. I'm going to go out and do marketing, and this might or might not work. There's anxiety, there's worry. If I'm identified with the anxiety or the fear, it owns me. And I'm going to do all kinds of super reactive stuff. And then I'm going to shut off from my body. I'm going to be reactive. I'm going to be racing up here. The RAS, reticular activating system, you probably heard of that, is the part of your brain that sorts for basically the RAS is sorting at over 10 million bits of data per second. And some people like Joe Dispenza say even higher. So it's sorting through this infinite number of possibilities. But your conscious mind only sees about 10 bits of data. They used to say 7 plus or minus 3, which is a very tiny slice of what it's seeing. So now here I am sorting for reality. If I'm identified with anxiety and I'm sitting in anxiety and I'm trying to make sales and I'm trying to build the business, what 10 bits of data is it going to pull from the 10 million bits of data about reality for me? It's going to pull the ones that match my internal emotional experience. It's going to pull the ones that match anxiety, my worries, my fears. I'm going to get rejected. They're going to say no. Then my behaviors, my gut behaviors about what I should do are going to influence me to do things to get that experience to become reality. That's scientifically how law of attraction works. Now, let's say I'm in that fear and I'm and I'm going to go do sales, but I'm in courage. I've mastered the art of feeling courage, that open-heartedness. And then something got in my throat. And then I feel and look down at that fear. It's different. Now it's like, fuck, that scares me. I got to do it. Oh, this is going to be wild. What's going to happen next? Oh yeah, you make me nervous. Think about it in dating. There's a guy who's scared, walks up to a pretty girl, and hi, I just want to say hi. And you can feel that shrinking. Now you got the other guy. He walks up to the girl. He's scared. He opens his heart and he's like, fuck yeah, she makes me nervous. Oh my God, look at you. And he's turning red right in front of her, but he's like, yeah, that's the way I am. He owns it. He's like, I'm scared, but I'm right here anyways. That's fucking sexy. Do you see what I mean? Maybe his lip is quivering, right? I had a friend, he did that. He was really good with women, but he saw this one girl that scared him. Like I watched him and I was like, oh, my friend's nervous. And he went over to talk to her in a Target and he shrunk. He went out of courage. You could see it. He went out of courage and went into this heady reality. And he started saying, I just want to say hi. You're really pretty. And you could see the girls just like, whatever. And then suddenly he caught it. In that moment, I saw him catch it. And this energy shifted inside of him. And he took ownership of his fear. And then he went, you could see, it's like seeing the field get bigger and turn on, the light bulb. And he says, look at what you're doing to me. And she went, what? What do you mean? And he goes, my lip is quivering. I'm terrible. You're scaring the shit out of me, but I had to come say hi to you. Something about you. And she went, oh, really? And puts her phone away, instantly connected.
Yep. Because
he got real and authentic and owned his emotions. So when you start to learn to come from that higher state of emotion and look down at your fears, your doubts, your worries, your anger, you become more attractive to other people, whether it's sales, marketing, business. This is one of the secrets of Richard Branson. He owns vulnerability like no billionaire I've ever seen. It's so raw and real on him that everybody wants to hang out with him all the time.
I think that's the huge distinction point where it's like, you're not trying to get rid of the emotion at all. No. The emotion's going to be there. It's about owning up to the emotion itself,
100%.
Being vulnerable, displaying the emotion, letting it be there. That's really good. How does
and that's what embodiment teaches, by the way.
Yeah.
And it teaches you how to own the emotion. Energetic embodiment, the way I see that is we're not just our bodies, we're the field of energy around our bodies. Where there's an energetic self and a physical self. When you identify with the more energetic self, the energy in the field, in quantum physics, the toroidal field, you actually, instead of the body dictating your experience, my sadness dictates my experience, my field dictates my experience, which is greater than the body, and I start to get control. Instead of shrinking in and being collapsed into the body and saying, hi, I just want to talk to you, the field gets really big, and you go beyond the body, and you're like, hey, how you doing? What's your name?
Where does confidence play a role in it, right? Like, where does reps at bats, like, you feel in this way, you're quivering up when you first take a sales call, but then you start to just take that amount of repetition, or the same thing when you're approaching women. Does it kind of coincide with the...
Have you ever seen a salesman that does a lot of sales calls and only seems to get worse and eventually burns out? Okay. So in that sense, faking it till you make it didn't work, right?
Sure.
Then you see another salesman come in and he does the same thing and he gets better and better. The difference is what I talked about earlier. The salesman that's doing his reps with an open heart is going to change and grow, because the more I hold this open state, this field, and say hi, I can adjust and learn. I can feel your emotions. You can feel mine. I can say, well, I really fucked that one up. I'm going to learn from the next one. But if I'm closed, hi, do you want to buy? There's no connection. I'm trapped in a closed system. If I take a lake and then close off all the flow of water through it and just let it sit there, it's going to stagnate. If I shut off from the outside world and stop exchanging energy with you, lack of embodiment, close on my heart, close everything off, what happens? Nothing can change. It's like not having an internet connection to the world. I need to be able to download, and that's where this term download an idea comes from and all that stuff from metaphysics. But I need to be able to feel energies to be able to create a new reality, right? This is where a lot of the gazing work I've done in the past comes from. I did many years of tons of gazing work with clients in my dating work and non-dating work to build confidence. And what you'll see is the guys that when they would come in the room and whether it's another guy or a girl, and they're like gazing with somebody that can feel at all, and especially the women. The women are hypersensitive more than the guys. And they're locked in their chest, and they're locked back, locked up high, and they're trying to connect to the girls, and they're doing it all from up here. It's like for the girls, they can't breathe. And when the guy finally drops into his heart and opens his heart, she's like, almost every time the women are like, oh, thank God, I can breathe now. And it would happen so much. I started getting it on video and showing it to them. The moment that breakthrough would happen, I say, this is when you finally let her in. And women who can't even put this into words, I don't know what's going on here, but God, if finally I could breathe, and I start putting it into words and showing energetically what's going on with the dynamics, they're like, yeah, that's it right there. And all kinds of all kinds of wild stuff happens from there. And when you start to do that in sales, when you start to do that in your marketing, when you start to do that with your employees, when you start to do that with your long-term partner, start to really feel your body first, learn to connect to your body, learn to feel your heart, learn to feel your core, and then learn to connect what they would call in metaphysics, the chakras, whatever you want to call them, and Joe Dispenza calls the centers, to other people, and let that flow of energy happen. Now you're having real communication. Now people can say there's a human being in front of me to relate to. I can feel his emotions. I can feel his sadness. I can feel his determination. So confidence really builds when you stay open and you do your reps. Yeah. And you say, I'm scared, but I'm going to step into it again anyways. I'm going to learn from it. That's good. Think about you're going to go jump out of a plane. And there's one guy that's like, I don't want to fucking do that. And you have to just about drag him to do it. And the other guy's like, it terrifies me. I've got to do it. I can't wait to do it. There's something about it. Who's going to grow more from that? Right? Yep. You can feel that difference.
That's good, man. You had alluded to an experience you had earlier in the podcast with psychedelics and how this played into your world, your work, your perception, some of the lies that you've rather told yourself, some of the internalizations that you've had. Yeah. Do you mind sharing that? We talked a little bit about dinner, and it was
Are you talking about the Bufo?
Yeah,
or
the
are you
Bufo
talking
experience.
About, I've done a fair amount of psychedelics over the years, but I'm very picky with psychedelics. In other words, I don't think psychedelics are a thing you should do all the time. It's an occasional thing for growth.
It's medicine.
Yeah. Some people do it way too much, and they think the psychedelics are going to make them enlightened or something. And enlightenment has to come from you, not the psychedelics. It can give you a glimpse, and then you can grow from there. And it can say, this is the direction you're going. This is what you're learning. And so the next experience is, how can I move to that next level? So the big experience I had, probably the biggest experience in psychedelics, that really drove me down this path with mystical Christianity, and in my opinion, what was Jesus really about, was an experience on Bufo olivarius, which is the strongest psychedelic in the world, 5-MeO-DMT. I didn't know what I was getting into. I went down to somebody had been telling me about it. I watched a few YouTube videos of people screaming and yelling, and I was like, okay, what are they doing here? Processing deep emotions. And so I went down to take the Bufo, and I just signed up and said, oh, let's see what happens. I've done other psychedelics. What's the big deal, And I roll up, and this guy John's sitting there, and John's this awesome big. His heart was blasting open with all this love, and he gave me a hug, and I was like, God, this is a very loving guy. And John then sat me down and said, okay, here's how it's going to work. It's going to be about 25 minutes, but you might think you're gone for a day. You might think you're gone for an hour. All kinds of weird stuff happens. This is my introduction. He says, I've had people say I died and you brought me back, right? And I'll say, no, you didn't die. And he'll say, I know I died. I know you brought me back and you're just not telling me. And other people, he goes, they'll say they tore up the whole room and we put it back together. How did we put it back together? And I'm like, he's like, no, you didn't tear up the room. He said, other people will rip off all their clothes and run around the room. And I said, I'm not going to be sitting there naked when I come out of this, am I? And he said, well, we'll protect your body. That's what we do. We take care of your body because you go on a journey. You leave your body. You shouldn't even be aware of the room. If you are, raise your hand and we'll fix it. So I was like, okay, I didn't realize what I signed up for, but this is going to be interesting. So
well, let me pause you for a second. Perfect example of you being, I don't know, scared, but like fearful of the unknown, and still being like, let's go into this, as opposed to the scared version where, I mean, we could get into it, but like, if you really lean away from that fear, you're not going to have the same experience. You're not going to be able to drop into it, right?
No, I've gotten very comfortable over the years since I had my teacher Carl with emotions.
Yep.
Not like sappy comfortable. Not like, oh, I'm sad. I'm this. No, It's more like, yeah, bring them on. Life is all these emotions. I know I'm not any one of these emotions. I can handle them. Yeah. So I look at it as a masculine form of facing emotions, and there's a feminine form. Feminine people tend to, confident feminine people feel all these emotions and ride the wave of them and experience them, and they own them that way. Masculine tends to penetrate and go through these emotions like a ship sailing on the ocean, and the ocean's beating at the ship maybe, but this is where we're going, and we're going to ride the wave, and woohoo, you're up, the waves are taking you on a ride, and you're going to go for it. You're going to sail that ocean.
Sorry for sidetracking us. Please continue the Bufo.
So the Bufo, so when I get to the Bufo, there's this sense of like, okay, let's go for it. I'm going to ride the wave of whatever happens here, this experience. So I take the Bufo, you smoke it, and sure enough, reality vanishes. I'm sitting there, and there's this bed behind me, this mattress, and I smoke the Bufo, and then the next thing that happens almost instantly is pixelation in front of me, and like a pseudo pixelation. It's different, but not like a computer, and then reality parts, and a whole, like a veil opens, and I'm in another dimension.
Are your eyes open or closed at this point?
They're open. Cause I'm staring right at it. And that's, I can't, they felt like they were open. I can't say for sure. Because, but from the image I got from other people, I was staring right at something. I went like this. They're behind me, ready to catch my body if it falls backwards, or if I scream or yell. Because some people are known to do that in Bufo. They writhe and scream and yell. I remember this on the other side. I looked up and went, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful!" And there was this massive amount of love just all over me, all over my body, all over my heart. And I was standing suddenly in a golden city, and the walls were all energy of the city. They were pulsating with love and light, and it was towering over me. And I was just astounded by what I was seeing. I was like, this is incredible. Like, so much love. It was overwhelming me. And I was pretty much in tears, starting to cry. And I started to, at that point, fall backwards. And I had to hold that space. And I attribute that to the energetic embodiment, because it wanted to dissolve and move to something else. But I like this. I call it a conduit. I held that space. I'm going to stay right with this till it's solidified. And then I was in that space. And then I heard a knowing, not words. It wasn't even thoughts. It was a knowing that said, what you have in store for yourself pales basically in comparison to what I have waiting for you, or what I have here for you. And immediately I looked at all my wants and desires, my attachments, and they were nothing compared to this golden city, the love, the energy. And I was literally in awe of that city. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I was basically in tears a little bit, just kind of just beautiful. And I laid back, and there was a sense of peace too. And that's what they said to people who were watching my body. It said the same thing. It said, wow, it's so beautiful. And then it laid back, and it said, you just went into bliss, and you just laid there. And that's exactly how I felt. Next thing you know, I'm in the Golden City waking up. I'm aware. There's kind of a pseudo awakening. And there's this welcoming, like there's beings around me I can't see. They're taking care of me. And they're saying to me in some, again, like words, these are more like, a little bit more like thoughts. Welcome home, or welcome back. And almost like this feeling like I'd been in a battle being in a human body, and I made it back home. And there was immense care for me from those beings. And then there was a sense that my ego was coming back, and I saw it as black letters, said Brian, floating back to me. And I was dodging the ego. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that. And because it was so amazing. And then I eventually realized I had to take it back. So I did. I started to let it happen. Then I started to feel like I was in the room where I did the bufo, and there was awareness coming back. There was more that happened in between there, but it's all a little vague right now. And then as I started to wake up in the room, I felt immense love in the room from the facilitators, everybody around me. I could feel like I could see deeper into their souls. Then there was a sense that the facilitators just knew about this other world or something. Like there was a sense that there's this whole other world out there beyond this world. And you guys know, don't you? Yeah. And as I came back, I felt like I saw something magical. At first I was like, was that real? So the next time I left, and then later that day, I just went back to normal. I was like, wow, after that crazy experience, I feel normal again. How could I feel this normal again? And then the next day it started, and I started to have, for the next several months, I started to have all these relapses where I'd shut my eyes and I'd feel like I was dissolving again. Or I'd look outside and everything looked digital again, and like everything looked fake and full of energy. And I was like, oh my God, I'd walk around for 45 minutes in such beauty and awe, or a sunset would just overwhelm me with tears again. And then it would fade back. And so I took a part of it with me. I did ask Celeste, who I did this with, the woman I did this with, this was months later, I said, tell me about this golden city, because have you seen it? She goes, no, I've never personally been there, but I know people that have. And I was like, really? She says, yeah, it's usually pretty rare, but people do see it. And I was like, interesting. So I did more research, and as I dug a little deeper, of course, there's the Revelations. They talk about the golden city in Revelations, and that's what got me back into mystical Christianity. I felt like I was very curious about that, and I dug in deep. And then I started to hear about, like in Darius J. Wright's work, he's an out-of-body experiencer. He says he's seen the golden realm in his out-of-body experiences. He calls it the fourth realm, or the fifth realm. I think it's the fourth, where he says there's crystal cities and golden cities, and he's been there. Now, whether you believe that or not, I've done a lot of research on out-of-body experiences, and every researcher of OBEs, near-death experiences, NDEs, OBs are out of body, they all become believers in the afterlife. They all become believers in God. I can't tell you how many of them see Jesus or something like that. And it's just this whole world of energy just started to fascinate me more and more, and changed my whole life. It changed every part of my life.
These out-of-body experiences, these almost like realms or portals that you access, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they're there, or they're just a projection of like what your conditioning of your subconscious mind has been through your environment?
This is a great question. I asked it of myself, and I said, is this conditioning? Is this... And I'll tell you what I've come up with. Because I used to think I was just my imagination.
Sure.
But then so many other people have seen it. So what are they seeing in comparison to what I'm seeing? So I had to ask that question. Why are other people seeing the same stuff? And then I started to ask myself, as I looked at Darius J. Wright's work, he was talking about all these constructs, right, of reality. Reality... more and more people are saying reality is just a construct. Our minds, I think our minds together are creating levels of reality that we can experience. But we can all experience the same realities because they're shared realities, but they're all constructs. They're all illusions of the mind. Not illusions. They're all real, but they're not real. Like I believe physical reality is like a construct, and there's other realities that are constructs, and they're all valid constructs, as we can go visit. You can go visit the Golden City. I believe that Darius J. Wright has seen the Golden City, and that's just another construct you can go into. And so I do believe they're real, but they're also constructs at the same time. Does that make sense when I say it that way?
What's the quote unquote final construct, or what's the what happens at the end of it all?
The way it's always displayed in all the mystical teachings is oneness with God again. At the highest level, you dissolve back into God, and you feel that total unity with God. And on the way up, you can be in these constructs and feeling that unity at the same time, deep level unity with God, while walking in what they would call an astral realm. Or so it gets pretty wild when you think about this, from the OBEs to NDEs to the there's just so much about it now that we can study. It's the ridiculous amounts of validation of these possibilities.
How has this stuff showed up in your work? Because some guys are coming to you just like, dude, I just want to be able to like fuck my wife again, or be able to just start to run my business from flow state. And you're out here talking about the astrals. And I know that's not the exact thing that that's just showing up in your work, but how has this impacted your ability to coach?
It's impacted it massively, and I don't necessarily go there with everybody.
Sure.
Like, if somebody wants to go there, we can talk about it. The work I want to do is I want to give them practical results in this world. But by me having this sense of reality where I can open my heart at will and see the beauty in everything, because I'm not afraid of the afterlife, I'm not afraid of death, and I can see this, there's so much more going on. It really allows me, when somebody's really stuck in the mud, to hold space for them and to keep my heart open and see the best and see the possibilities and see what's going to be in the future potentially for them. Will definitely be. And that allows me to stay really strong in the face of their reactivity, of their pain, of their sadness, and just love them and give them that love and that resonance they need. It's really about a vibrational resonance.
Sure.
And that allows them over time to pull out of it and come up. If I can hold this space here, like in spiral dynamics, if I can hold a higher space of being, and I don't get pulled down to their space, then what happens is they eventually come up and start to meet me higher up.
Yeah.
And that's what we ultimately want to do. I want to be so solid as I can be for the person that's learning. And just like my teacher was for me. He didn't break. He didn't, he wasn't coming down. He was like, you either come up and meet me, because I ain't coming down there.
That's good, man. Yeah. What do you think as you've gone through a lot of these experiences and done a lot of the work, what do you think your purpose, on this earth is? I know it's tough. It evolves, tough to
not
define,
really.
But okay.
I think it's an easy answer because I've been looking at it a lot, and actually had a chat with AI about this very topic. I believe that my purpose is okay, if you were to look at somebody like, what do you think Gary Vaynerchuk's purpose is? You can see it all over him. He motivates the shit out of people to go. He's not just a marketing guy. He loves motivating people. He's like, you can do it. Don't fucking tell me you can't. He cusses at him. Don't fucking get out there and fight, He's in your face, right?
Making content.
Right. Exactly. Mocking people, but he's doing it with love, right? Sure. He's got this big open heart. So he's doing that to the masses. One of my goal, my mission is to take people through their shadow and wake them up to the point where they can be at least encouraged and above in life, and get them to the point where so instead of doing the masses like Gary's doing, I'll get an individual and I'll say, let's go through, let's get everything back opened again. No matter how rough it gets, you can yell at me, you can hate me, you can tell me to fuck off, and I'm going to hold space for you. That's my job. And I'm going to help you get through everything to the other side till you can start to resonate from courage and above. And if you want to go higher after that, we can go higher. But I know if you can get across that demarcation point and you can start to look down and learn to move from reactivity to proactivity, that first level of love, and start to live life and build your business from there, it's all uphill. And from that point on, your life is going to grow. It's going to expand. It's only going to get better. More and more beautiful things are going to come to you. And yes, I have clients that are higher than that have worked their way up to higher states, and they're real, and life seems magical for them. And yes, I like to bring as many of them into some of my group classes as I can, because it helps pull everybody up. I don't have to carry all the weight.
Sure.
But for some people, they just want to cross that point. And I know that once you cross that point and you can look down, you have perspective. Now you see from below that point, it's all reactive. It's all, what am I doing? Why? Confusing. Above that point, you're like, Jesus, why was this so hard in the first place? Like, it's obvious now. This is.
Do you think it's possible to get there through osmosis, being around the right people?
Yes. Resonance is a real thing. So if you're around enough people that are vibrating that state, whether they teach it directly or not, you're going to start to rise up. Unless the exception to that rule would be somebody that's so addicted to their suffering and games that they're going to try their damnedest to pull everybody down.
Sure.
And they're going to need some special. Luckily, there's not as many of those people, but they exist, and they get a passive aggressive charge out of taking somebody that's in a high state and pulling him below the level of, getting them frustrated, pulling them below and you can see that they almost get a turn on out of it. It's a game. That's a hard game to break. It can be broken, but it's hard work.
Where do you sit at typically?
That's hard to say. It's weird to rate yourself like
Sure.
that. I know I'm above the level of courage now, and for most of my life I wasn't, and I'm pretty far above the level of courage most of the time. AI told me the other day I was in the 500s on Hawkins scale. I was like, well, that's very generous. I took that as like, wow, but that's the only rating I've ever got.
Sure.
AI was basing it on, how AI reflects back to you, basing on all our conversations. It's not something you want to, I just know that I'm living my passion, doing my work, and I've worked hard to get here. And I want to help as many other people live their version above the level of courage as possible.
I love that.
And whether that's money or relationships or something else altogether.
Last point I want to touch on is you had mentioned in one of your podcasts or YouTube videos that I watched about how total freedom is significantly more valuable than happiness.
Yeah.
Where does total freedom sit on the scale? I know I don't think it has its own like position there, but where do you think it sits on the scale in relativity to happiness? And why is total freedom more valuable than happiness?
Well, freedom is in peace, right? If you look at all these subtle emotions that go at the level of peace, top of the emotional scale, freedom, at least Lester scale, you could, but freedom is up there. And that's because if it's total freedom and true freedom, there's no attachment or aversion anymore. And if there's no attachment and aversion, you're basically enlightened. You're living from this state where somebody could yell at you and it goes right through you, where you could lose your money and you're just like, I'll just make more. You trust completely. That Buddha said the source of all suffering is attachment. And Lester Levin said attachments and aversions. And really aversions are just reverse attachments, so that they're all attachments. And so total freedom is really the top of the scale. And when you're no longer attached, and so there's no greater gift than that. But the beauty of total freedom, or a state like total freedom, because I don't use that term as much, but is that you can see clearly. So if you need to go make more money, you're not reactive to the environment, to the crowd. See, it's easy to see how to make money. It's easy to see what to do. It's easy to see. You need a client? It's easy, because you're not worried. You're not stressed. And people feel it. And so they want to work with you.
Yeah. You're no longer coming from lack or scarcity.
Yeah. And then abundance chases you. When there's no lack inside your body, there's no lack in the outside world. Now, does that mean that if there's no lack inside my body, I'm going to be a billionaire? Honestly, probably not. I mean, maybe if there was a mission, if there's a reason for me to have $1 billion and go serve the world, but do you really need $1 billion to experience freedom? No. Do you need money to experience freedom? No. I have the amount of money I'm meant to do what I'm meant to do with, which could be a lot, could be less. For some people, it might be a huge family that's filled with love and it's not about money. It might be, living a nomadic lifestyle as a minimalist lifestyle and then teaching people about who knows what. It could be the simplest thing.
What's it for you?
Doing what I'm doing. I couldn't stop doing what I'm doing. I love to help people wake up. I love helping people cross that line of courage. And I love helping people go much higher on the scale as much as they want to go. I love teaching. I think the whole purpose, if you look at NDEs, near-death experiences, in the life review that constantly comes up in almost every near-death experience, the life review in all of these near-death experiences around the world is pretty much the same thing. The question is, it's never about what you've accomplished, how much money you made, how many businesses you had. The life review is always about the amount of love or lack of love you created in the world. 100% of the time. And you get two experiences. You get to experience that love and see how much love you created. In any place you created lack of love, like if I hurt you in this life, I get to experience the hurt I created for you from your perspective. And all the judgment that's on my body is all self-judgment. The other side's not judging you. What we project as the other side judging us, the wrath of God and all that stuff, is all ourselves. It's all a deep core part of ourselves that's attacking ourselves. And so in the life review, you're undoing that. You're undoing the self-judge. You get to experience and learn from the pain you caused others and then undo the judgment. And then that's huge. So when I look at life, the number one thing is, how many people did I move up to the level of love, to some level, which starts at courage and above? How many people did I help experience love? And that, the more the better. That's where the win's at. And that's all resonance. So you have to, it's not a logical idea. Love is not, it's a word. But the experience of love is resonance. It's like the ability, like when you feel honey and you feel that openness, right? It's the same thing. If I can create a state where I'm so open that I open you more and I can constantly transmit that and keep, that's what it's about.
Yeah. I can personally attest that you definitely embody all that work. I mean, the first time I ever had exposure to you was in, do you remember we sat across from each other in Banff at dinner and had no idea who you were. We had no idea who each other were. And we just dropped in. Was that the first night? First time you and I have ever.
Was that the first night in Banff?
I think that was like the second night. And we were sitting next to Eli and Bryn, and Eli was like, "Oh, you guys need to definitely chat." And we were like, "Yeah, we are like locked eyes into this conversation for like the last hour." And then I found out that this is like what you do.
Yeah,
you were able to kind of control how the conversation was flowing, and I had no idea what was going on until you explained to me what was kind of going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless, man, I just appreciate the way that you show up.
Well, we did a little bit of that last night.
Yeah.
at dinner.
Oh yeah, we were locked in.
And but instead of just doing it, I explained everything that was going on to you, why I was doing what I was doing, how those energies felt, which it becomes unconscious competence, right? You don't think about it anymore. Yep. But I made it conscious for that moment so you could experience it at a deeper level. And so I just, it was, to me, that's fun. I want to show it because if everybody can do that, we have a much better world.
Yeah, that's how we change the world.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Are you going to write a book? Have you written a book?
My books were back in my dating coaching days. And
Okay.
so one of the books really has nothing to do with dating, actually. It's all about, it's like these energetics for dating. Mm-hmm. As was the book, was like everything in there was like this. I remember this girl was reading it and she goes, "This is a great book. It has nothing, like you could use this for anything." I said, "Yeah, but I the market I was selling to,
sure.
So I had to put the label of dating on it."
Yep.
I want to take that book because it's a smaller book and I want to expand it and turn it into something much bigger. So yes, right now I'm in the process of creating more online courses and we're building them out. And then I'm going to go backwards and probably recreate that book and stuff like that. And I got 2 or 3 books that are easily inside me, and as soon as the membership sites pump it, then I'll be going in that direction.
I love it, man. Well, whoever's listening to this, if you get an opportunity to meet with Brian, work with Brian, can personally attest that just being in his presence is an opportunity to level up and drop in and get into your body.
Thank you.
So appreciate your friendship, man. Appreciate
Same
your
here.
counsel.
I love coming here. That you're putting so much great energy into this. I really appreciate it. And you've been a spectacular host. A lot of love coming from you. I really love what you're doing too. So thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Thank you. And she stayed the whole time.
Yeah.